Join us, Alex
and Colleen,
self-proclaimed fake it till you make it experts, as we navigate the highs and lows of being a woman and how the pressure and overwhelm of trying to do it all often leads to feeling like an imposter in our own lives.
On today's episode, we dive into a conversation with the vibrant Martina Kelades, exploring how she has navigated imposter syndrome to discover purpose through mental health, family, and creativity.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Colleen.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I have a question for you.
Okay.
What rabbit hole are you in on social media right now?
Well, I'm actually in a few. So I started crocheting granny squares, so I have a lot of granny square content going on right now. But I had finally retrained my algorithm from like disaster and death on TikTok because I followed one story about a disease once, and then all of a sudden that's all I got. But then I actually followed some of the footage from the hurricane in Florida, and now that's all I've got is like flooding content. So I have to retrain it again.
I need to retrain mine at the moment because I went down the whole P. Diddy rabbit hole, and I've been in there really hard, and that's all that's showing up.
Yeah, that happened to me on Threads. I read a couple threads, and then all I got was threads about various people's experiences, and I was like, no, that's
it's hard, eh? Every now and then you just need to sit down with your social media and say, I'm only going to look at like baby ducklings and bunnies for a little bit.
Yeah,
so
like give me the skits.
Stuff.
Give me the comedy. That's
right?
What I need.
You do need the comedy. Listen, take a look at your phone right now. I want to know. Go to your settings. Let's do it. Let's dive in. Tell me, what's your screen time, your average screen time?
It's actually, for today, pretty low. My daily average says 2 hours and 11 minutes, but you know why? That's because I've been crocheting in all my downtime.
Your daily average is, my daily average right now is 6 hours, 4 minutes, and I feel like that is really low because I typically spend a lot more time than that.
But to be fair, I'm down 50%, and Monday was not a real work day, so I'm attributing it to that.
Okay, well, that's not so bad. We're not as bad as we thought we would be. We have with us, however, speaking of that you love watching comedy, which is really cool, we have Martina Kelades with us today. And Martina, one of your characters that I absolutely love that you brought out during the pandemic was
Tyler Perry's Medea.
You did. Such a good job. Okay, so first of all, you are this stunningly beautiful woman, and then you come on screen with like no makeup, a gray wig, a ridiculous dress, a cardigan sweater.
Nightgown,
like, and it just was so joyful. So thanks for bringing that comedy during the pandemic because, man, I laughed.
Oh, good. Well, that was my whole intention, honestly, was to share some light, love, and laughter into the world because we all know what that season of our lives was like.
That was not fun. What's your rabbit hole right now? What have you been?
Well, that's interesting because as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, what is mine? I think mine is a lot of inspiration and also acting stuff.
Yeah.
All of the information, tips, techniques that I can absorb.
So we should tell our audience, Martina is a professional storyteller and a multi-passionate artist, actor, public speaker, and podcast host. You draw on your acting background, you leverage the art of storytelling to inspire others to live an intentional, courageous life. You found the Life Out Loud Mental Health Consulting and Creatives, a mental health promotion company, and a platform that shares unfiltered stories supporting those experiencing mental health challenges and those who dare to live life on purpose. That's so cool.
That's a lot, isn't it?
You're doing a lot of really cool stuff, but I need to tell me a little bit about your personal journey and your background and what inspired you to pursue a career in acting. I mean, you were in mental health, and then all of a sudden you're acting. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
I totally flipped the flow with that. It was an unexpected entry into the industry. I'll go back a little bit. So my background originally, what I went to school for was in the field of social sciences. I did a degree in psychology, did a addictions counseling diploma, and I started working in the employability skill training as a personal development facilitator and counselor. So I did that for 10 years, loved it, but I burnt out. I was going to say but it's not it's and I burnt out.
I think so many people in that field do burn out. Like you're, especially if you're empathetic at all, you're taking in all those feelings. Like,
yeah. Honestly, it was, the burnout was obviously it happened over time, but it was an experience of me holding people's challenges and struggles and trying to be an advocate for individuals. We worked a lot with individuals who were connected to employment or income assistance who were looking to develop work-ready skills. So looking to get back into the workforce, giving them additional training, life skill training, technical training. And I was kind of that liaison between the work, but also the personal development piece, because that is the important part when it comes to like getting someone back into the flow of working. And what I discovered over time was that it wasn't necessarily a lack of work skills. There were a lot of clients I worked with that were struggling with mental health problems. I had majority of my clients disclose mental health issues. And so it was like until we address the root of what's going on in their lives, going to work is just a temporary thing. And oftentimes it wasn't sustainable. Like they didn't stay in those positions. And so over time, it was like, I got more curious about the mental health aspect of it. I did the mental health first aid Canada training certification to be a facilitator. So that was kind of like my entry into understanding more about mental health problems and how do we support people in those, like in crisis. And then it turned into, wanting again to do additional training. And that was, that's when I kind of started, I co-founded a mental health organization. And I thought that would be the way that I could actually pour into that realm of my work, because as a personal development counselor facilitator was more of the employability skills that we were focused on.
Sure.
So co-founded the mental health organization. I was doing that. I was working full-time, doing the volunteer work full-time. I was working with children and youth in emergency care full-time. I was doing all these things. I was struggling with my own mental health. I had a situation that was kind of triggered through someone sharing their own challenges with me that brought up some old skeletons.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I was a pretty good, what do you call them? When they bury them under the, what is the Undertaker or something like that? I don't know. I was good at burying. Listen.
But then you started digging up some bones.
And then they started rattling and shaking. The ground started trembling. And I was like, uh-oh, here they come. And I was in denial because relationships were falling apart. I was falling apart. And again, I had this idea of I needed to be like the perfect professional. I needed to cover up everything, because if I show any kind of crack as a support person for my clients, they're not going to find me credible. They're not going to be able to trust me. All these things. My employer's not going to be. And
so much pressure.
There's the pressure,
and
right?
And the pressure I put on myself.
For sure.
No one
but
else.
You've changed that idea now because
absolutely, yeah.
We all know that the authenticity and the vulnerability is that's what people they connect with you when you.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%.
It takes time, though. It takes time. You have to live in that burnout or in those situations to realize that, though, I think, sometimes, or to have the confidence to show up that way. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you broke. I think I met you around the time.
In my broken season.
I met you in your broken season.
Oh, what a season.
Right.
What a season. But honestly, I'm grateful for that season. I believe that there is purpose in our pain. And I talk a lot about this through my work, Life Out Loud, because we are all going through something. We all experience trials and tribulations, and And it wasn't until like I started doing therapy, which I will say, I will admit that it was hard for me to go to therapy, even though I was recommending therapy to my clients. It was like, oh, but not you, ma'am. No way. You cannot, like, you don't need therapy.
Really?
And oh yeah, but I knew I had to go, and my original intention in going to therapy was to fix a relationship. And in therapy, I realized Martina needed her broken
That's
pieces
usually the way it
fixed.
goes. You go for something very specific and unlock a whole lot of other shit.
Well, this is it. Absolutely. And then that journey carried, and I continued to lean into things that I needed to deal with. And you can't heal things until you reveal them. And that was my biggest
Oh, I like
realization.
that. You can't heal things until you reveal them.
It's so true.
Yeah.
You don't know because you don't know what's forcing the issue or what's happening under the surface until you
right.
get to it.
Yeah,
right.
digging the deep. I get what you're saying about being a little bit nervous about going to counseling, because certainly the very first time I would have gone, I would have been pretty...
We grew up with a huge stigma
there
around
was
therapy.
shame and stigma,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And I think I was always afraid that... I knew that I was this like onion with all these layers, and I was afraid that if they would start unpeeling the layers, there was going to be nothing left. Like I was...
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get to that.
You do, yeah. And I have kind of gotten down to that. I've dug pretty deep, but I could dig again.
Yeah. It's part of the journey of life.
It
I
is.
would rather go through it and have hard conversations. And like, since allowing myself to be vulnerable and open and honest with my own journey and with my struggles, that has just opened up and unfolded this new identity of who, I am. And like, it's strengthened my faith. It's strengthened relationships, especially with myself, because I'm deserving and I'm worthy of that support, just like anyone else that I would have recommended, like my therapists or my clients. And it wasn't until like I was off work, I was put off work for burnout. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And I came across the Brene Brown, The Power of Vulnerability TED Talk. And I was like, who is this woman? So I went down a rabbit trail with that, because I'm like, who is Brene Brown?
I
And
know.
I watched that video, and like she was talking about how she saw a therapist who sees therapists, and that like triggered something, like it brought up something good in me. And I thought, well, if this well-researched, well-educated woman sees a therapist, what makes me think that I'm not deserving of that kind of support?
I think
that changed everything.
Brene Brown opened those doors for an awful lot of women of that generation to understand themselves, to realize that, like you said, that we were worthy of finding out a little bit more of who we are, and we were worthy of breaking, like we were allowed to break and put ourselves back together and live a whole new life.
That's right.
A better life.
That's
right.
it. It was my breakdown that carried me to my breakthrough.
Right.
Which is kind of the season that I'm navigating now, because I was off work, and it was recommended that I didn't return to that job. And I was like, well, this is all I know. Like I was supposed to retire and get the gold watch, and like, like this was my reality. And then all of a sudden my reality changed. And so then when I was off work, I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do now? Like, who's going to want to hire me? Because now I have these labels identifying like mental health disorders that are all over me. But really, I'm just saying this in my head, because no one else actually
the imposter
sees it.
syndrome
Because
setting in.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And even when I told close friends of my diagnosis, they were like,
So, yeah.
but also where, like when, like, because I was so good at hiding it. I armored up
Yeah.
so hard. Like you could not see through. I could look at you and be like, everything is great, and make you laugh and love on you. And then behind closed doors fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, no more of that. I'm not doing this anymore. I am tired of pretending that I'm living this perfect life. I have this perfect marriage. I have this perfect career. None of that ever existed.
Yeah.
And but I was grateful that I had an employer at the time that you saw that things were unraveling for me. And even though I was in denial, they held space. My manager and CEO held a space for me to have these conversations, to reflect on, okay, what's actually going on for you? And so when I was off work and I was thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I thought, well, maybe I could start a business. Maybe I could like provide organizations with the same kind of safe space to have difficult conversations about mental health in the workplace, just like my CEO and manager did. And that's that's how Life Out Loud started. And I started blogging and I started talking about my journey. And
That's cool. And you've
such a great legacy.
serving up hot brews, refreshing cold drinks, lots of fresh baked goodies, and delicious lunch options. Visit the Mellow Mug in the heart of Larry Utech for dine-in, takeout, or drive-through service. Their spacious cafe offers a casual and inviting vibe that's perfect for everything from enjoying a good book, hanging with friends, or meeting a colleague. The Mellow Mug is your neighborhood spot for great coffee and delicious eats and sweets. It really is. Yeah, that is, you're right. It's a great legacy. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've built something quite beautiful, and through it.
Well, and to find something that's so needed based on personal experience makes it so much more special, and the drive is there because you know the impact of it. So it's awesome.
Yeah. And that goes back to, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that's when the truest connection happens in community. And it wasn't until I started sharing about what I was going through that it started to resonate with people. Like when I wrote blogs about my own burnout, strangers from around the world would email and say, like, I'm a mom and I'm struggling with, my career and my marriage and trying to be the best mom and like trying to take care of myself in the process. And so I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know you, but you don't know me. And also you found connection in a story. And it was similar to like when I first discovered Brene Brown. It was like when she was talking about her struggles. And then I started, leaning into other people who were open and transparent about living life.
Falsely believed that we are the only ones that are going through stuff.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when all of a sudden when people start sharing, and I mean, this is one of the reasons that we love this podcast is we both deal with imposter syndrome. We have through the years for different things, and talking to other people about their challenges, it normalizes what we're all going through. And and I think those are important conversations to have, right? Because you look at somebody and you think they have it all together. And then you're wondering, well, why don't I have it together?
Right.
Why? Because we're comparing ourselves to them. Why can't I do that? Why can't I shine like that? They're a mess. They're not shining either.
Well, this is it.
So when we have these conversations, we don't feel so alone.
That's right. And I feel like when I was off, it was rough. I was in a deep well of depression, and most people wouldn't know. But I remember days where I couldn't even get out of bed.
No.
And like having a shower was like the chore of the day. Put on some new pajamas and that's it. And I remember like
and
scrolling.
That's a big deal.
Oh,
and that's
absolutely.
Okay. If you're at that place, that's okay.
That's good. I didn't want to stay there,
have
though,
a shower.
honey.
No, you don't want to stay there, but get back in bed if you need to, or tomorrow's another day, right?
It was a time of rest, and it was a time of just taking care of what I needed. But I remember scrolling online and again, watching everyone's highlight reels, and it's like, look at the perfect lives they're living. And I feel like not only because my business is called Life Out Loud and the work that I do is Life Out Loud, but I feel like I have a responsibility in being honest and open about all the parts of my life. That doesn't mean that I share and disclose every single detail of what I'm going through. But there are times I show up online and I'm like, I'm struggling. Like
Today's
2022,
day,
go
guys.
back in the archives.
Yeah.
2022, I had some moments where I got in a story. I was crying and I was like, I just need people to realize that I'm in a place right now and it's painful and I'm going through a lot, because people would still say to me, oh, like when they see me, oh, you're doing so much and I love what you're doing. But I never want people to believe that comes without struggle. You know what I mean?
I think it's so important because for so long, we only saw the positives on social media. And to a certain extent, it is still very much that way. But more and more people are daring to show up in whatever state they may feel like. And I think it's helpful for people to feel like they're not alone. Everybody wants connection. That's why people are on social media to begin with.
That's right.
And it could be motivating, but it also can be relatable. And people need that. They need to know that other people are also struggling and to find out how people work through things. So it's very brave. I think
It
it's
is
great.
brave. And don't you find that when you're most vulnerable, that's when the support comes in?
But that can be uncomfortable too.
It
You
is.
know,
It
that
can
vulnerability, they call it the vulnerability hangover, where you say
Oh,
something
yes.
really, and then you shut off your phone because you don't want people to come and whatever.
Yeah.
You know, that feeling, there's that part of it too. So it's hard, especially if you're someone who's always presented outwardly that you had it all together and everything is okay. Chances are you're the kind of person who doesn't love a lot of help from other people or people to know that you're have any kind of weaknesses. So if people come at you with oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, that's also hard to take. That's
Yeah, I know. I remember after when I started my podcast, and the very first episode was called "Doing It Scared." I don't know why I was so scared to
Because it's
to come to.
terrifying.
I know, but then it was of course, because you're talking about your life.
Yeah.
And then I felt that vulnerability hangover. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It is out there in the world for everyone to see. And also at the same time, I'm building a business in the business community. And I started hearing these voices of, well, what organization is going to want to hire you if you're talking about X, Y, and Z, or if you're talking about shame, no one wants to have those kind of conversations. So then it was battling that too of, okay, now they know what I've gone through. And also, are they going to see me as a professional? Am I going to be credible in the community? But that wasn't even a thing.
I think it actually makes
honestly.
you more credible
I
because
do
you
too.
have the experience in the background, and that's notable.
For me, when I started writing my blog, my dad he was always sending me messages saying, you sure you wanted to say that? You sure you want to put that out there? And because he came from such a business background that you don't, a different generation, you don't share stuff. You toughen up. You don't, and Dad's like, how are you going to get clients if you're out there telling people that you're stressed out? Who's going to want to hire you if you're saying these things? Did you have any of that family pressure on this as well?
I wouldn't say family pressure per se. What I will say is what I'm doing is very much, I wouldn't say against, but it's not common, especially in the Black community. My grandmother, my great grandmother's we go to God, honey. We go to God. We pray. And yes, I go to God, but also there needs to be a space of, talking about these things and just not, seeking professional help, for some of these things. And I'm breaking generational cycles. I truly believe that I'm breaking generational cycles of, not allowing trauma to kind of carry forward into, how we show up in the world. And there's a lot of addictions in my family. And I think that's related to generations of just not allowing ourselves to heal. Again, we are worthy of healing. We've gone through a lot as a community. And I'm grateful, though, I will say, for my parents and their support on my journey. And, there's times where they will, I guess, just remind me to be mindful of what needs to be protected. And I think that's important as well. And that's why I say, not everything, every
'cause
detail
you
needs
do-
to be revealed.
You do have a right to your privacy.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because my business is Life Out Loud doesn't mean that
They don't need to know everything. That's
and,
right.
Right. And so, and a part of that is I keep that certain parts of my journey sacred and private. But also it's about talking about everyday experiences that we find commonality in, and how do we find a way to navigate through it.
I like what you said though about your grandmother's. We let God take care of that.
Oh yeah,
because
give it to God, honey.
give it to God. But I've always been a strong believer that I I work through, like I'll work through ideas or I work through something with a therapist, let's say, but then it comes to the point, and I have a bracelet with a little, I'm not wearing it right now, but it says let go, what is it? Let go and let go and let God.
That's it.
Because there comes a point where I've done the work, I've thought it through, I can't pound on this anymore. It comes to a point where I just have to let it go.
Yeah.
Like let the universe take care of it, let God take care of it. So I get what they're saying.
Yes.
That we have to let God take that,
That's
but
right.
there's also an in-between. Like there's something between me and getting to that point is doing the work.
Yeah. Like the God I serve is not a genie in a bottle.
No.
So it's not like, okay, God, just take me out of this bed and out of this depression. Like he is all powerful and he can do that. But also I'm required to make some effort. And where I am weak, he is strong. And that's what I learned. Like 2022 was, like I said, a rough year. And there were moments where, I mean, I had a panic attack, and I don't think I had one like that in years, if I could even have identified that years ago. But I just remember laying on the ground and just praying, like, God, just help me, give me a vision, give me discernment, give me order my steps so I know like what's going on, because right now I feel like everything is falling apart. I felt like my whole world was falling apart, and I heard God say, your world is falling together. Do you trust me? Keep going. Keep pressing forward.
Love that.
And that's what I did. And even though, just because, I am a Christian, and I do, my faith is my main thing. Love God, but that doesn't mean that I won't experience hardship. Sure. And sometimes people think that it's like, no, the rain falls on the just and the unjust. And it's like, but what do you have as your rock? Like when I hit rock bottom, I knew who the rock was at the bottom. And that was God. And so if I didn't have that, there are times where I'm like, I don't know if I would have made it this far without my faith.
Faith can be such an amazing foundation, but we still have to self-advocate.
That's right.
It's a great foundation, and I wouldn't consider myself to be a very religious person, but I do believe that things happen for a reason. So I think I believe in something universal, spiritual, and I do think that, we have to follow our intuition, and we have to advocate for ourselves, and we have the power to do so.
That's right. And I will say I'm not religious either. I have a relationship, and that was the thing. I grew up in the church, but I didn't have a relationship really with God until later. But it's relationship. It's relational.
Yeah.
And like religion and like that's.
Yeah, I'm not as well with organized religion, but I'm very much spiritual. It's for me. Yeah.
But I think, and that's a big part. Like I realized that was a part of my wellness that was missing, because we focus so much, especially like on physical wellness. I focused a lot on mental wellness, social wellness, but we don't talk a lot about spiritual wellness. And I think that's a piece of the wellness wheel that's often missed or not talked about. Or
it's a scary one. It really requires a leap of faith. I mean, no pun intended. It really requires you to believe in something bigger than yourself.
That's right.
So that can be terrifying.
Absolutely.
And rewarding, but terrifying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think when you look at, what's my purpose? So many people ask that question, like, what is my purpose?
Yeah.
I think that is also tied to, how we show up in life. Like, I don't think my purpose is my work per se. My purpose is like how I love people.
Yeah.
And my work is the platform that is used to love people, show God's love, for example, and to just see people where they're at.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Looking to relax and rejuvenate? Treat yourself at Bello Day Spa. Located in the heart of Bedford West, from luxurious facials and brow services to soothing massages, waxing, and perfect manis, pedis, their team has you covered. Bello Day Spa isn't just a place for pampering. Their friendly staff will help you find the perfect skincare products from their wide selection of premium lines. Ready to refresh your routine? Book your appointment today and discover why Bello Day Spa is your neighborhood go-to spot for relaxation and self-care. Bello Day Spa, your local relaxation retreat. Listen, we had you go through all of the categories of let's get into imposter syndrome. We had you.
I mean,
go
I think
through
we've been
all-
kind of talking about
we have
imposter
been
syndrome the whole
all
time
along.
under the surface.
That's right. We talked about all the different categories, and I thought it was really interesting because Alex and I both what we call built our pizza. We're like little bits of pieces of different things from each of the categories. I think you very much as well. You said you could kind of pull something out of every single category, the main category being perfectionism.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's hard, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is very hard.
It's hard to be presenting as a perfectionist and wanting to be a perfectionist and striving for the ultimate
Yeah.
when things aren't so perfect.
And things can't be perfect.
They can't.
No.
Yeah.
You can't control everything, right?
No. Absolutely not.
Well, and everyone's definition of perfection is different too.
True.
And it's a sliding scale, especially if you're an overachiever. You could feel like you get close to perfectionism and then you just move the scale farther away.
Move the scale. I like
Yeah.
that. Let's just move the
It's
scale
true.
a little bit. Yeah.
It's impossible to reach.
What did you,
Yes.
when you were reading through the categories, though, did you discover some things about yourself?
I
or-
was like, oh my goodness, how am I supposed to pick one?
Most people feel that way, I think.
I wondered that actually. I was like, is this something that a lot of people say? But I felt like I could definitely resonate with a lot of them. The perfectionist one was certainly the top, superhuman too. But
Yeah.
I think when I think about my burnout experience, I think a lot of that was rooted in perfectionism too. Like even like from childhood, like I grew up in the Annapolis Valley, the beautiful Annapolis Valley, U minus specifically. And, but it was a predominantly white community and, at the time. And I always remember, my parents encouraging me, like, education is important. You need to have an education, to have a good career. And again, it was part of like breaking that generational cycle because they didn't go to university. And so they wanted their children to excel and succeed beyond what they did. And I always felt like I had to work harder because of being a Black woman, and I was always told, it's going to be harder for you because of the color of your skin. And so it was constantly this idea of I need to have things perfect. I need to be above and I need to strive harder. And learning doesn't come easy. I'm not a natural learner. What's the term?
Academic, I think.
Yeah, it's not natural for me. I had to work. And I think that kind of like trickled over into other areas. And like, there were times in school where I was bullied and I just didn't feel like I was beautiful like my white friends, or I didn't have the nice clothes, like the designer clothes, or I didn't have like the straight hair or the blonde hair or the light eyes, all these things that, kind of accumulated into this, how do I shift this to be perfect? And then it kind of trickles into like career, which is, like I shared earlier, it was like, I need to be the perfect professional and I need people to want to work with me. And
Did you feel like people were watching you because you're different? Because you would have been different if you were one of the only Black girls in your community at that time.
yeah, I mean, I was definitely, I don't know if I would say I felt people watched me, but it was always known that I was one of few.
One of you, yeah.
One of few. Yeah.
Alex and I often, one of the root causes of imposter syndrome are cultural differences. And Alex and I, so I'm so glad you're talking about this because we're two white girls. Like we're like, we don't have that experience. And I'm so glad you're talking about it because it's so important. And it's a root cause of imposter syndrome, of never feeling like you're quite, or feeling like a little bit of a fraud.
Yeah.
Never quite feeling like you're fitting in.
That part.
The fraud, yeah.
I actually wrote a paper in university about my experiences growing up Black in the Valley. So my family, my dad's family is from North Preston, the largest Black Indigenous community in Canada. And my mom grew up in the Annapolis Valley in Sheffield Mills and was one of the only few Black families in that area. And my mom experienced a lot of racism growing up, and my father grew up in a Black community and had very different experiences. And so when they settled in the Valley and raised us children there, it was interesting, like, growing up, trying to understand who am I as within my Black identity, who am I as a Black child, because I'm growing up here in this space, and we would go up home, is what we call it, North Preston, like on weekends and going to see family. And when I was a teenager, I remember a family member saying to me, "You talk like a white girl," and it never left me, actually. And it was quite interesting because it was like, okay, in this group here in the Valley, I sound like them, I speak like them. It's the vernacular. It's a whole thing. We're not going to we'll get into it here now. But I sounded like them, but I didn't look like my peers. But when I went, to North Preston, I looked like my people, but I didn't sound like them. And so I wrote a whole paper about that. I was like trying to understand, like, who am I within my own culture and identity as a Black woman. And like, even when I was young, my mom had shared that she'd take me to the grocery store once. I was maybe 3, 4. And I said to the cashier, my mom is Black, my daddy's Black, and I'm Black. It was just proclaiming my Blackness, but it was just so, a childlike wonder of like, but you're not Black. So I think it's interesting how, like, little moments of your life kind of come together and start to create this narrative around identity. And so it was, I did really well in that paper, actually.
I bet
I'd love to read it, actually.
I'd like to find it.
Right?
I actually would like to find it somewhere in the archives. But
I'm fascinated by this topic. I really, truly am, because that identity and wanting to fit in and wanting to belong. And I can't imagine how you would have felt as a little person with an aunt saying you're talking like a white girl, and you so all of a sudden you're not quite fitting there.
Yeah. And then you have your own internal struggles too, because sometimes when I'm, in the Black community, sometimes I feel like, am I Black enough? Like there's certain, yes, of course, like I'm at a place now where I'm like, yeah, this is who I am. Yeah. And it's just been a journey of identity and like understanding my history and my lineage too, which is a big part of that.
And even having your parents grow up so differently too must have been really interesting to navigate those different narratives and the way that they grew up and would have been so different. So it would have been interesting, even some of the conversations that they would have had parenting too, which was just having such different experiences.
That's right. Yeah. And we've had some conversations too around that. I think I shared one on my podcast.
Your dad almost would have just been like, go out, be yourself, do your thing. But your mom would have understood some more of the challenges that you were facing. Right?
Yeah. But like growing up I don't recall like overt racism. Of course you have like, you have structures and systems that weren't really designed for us, and systemic, racism. But, in terms of like my peers, for the most part, I felt accepted. And there was times where I was like, it was cool to be Black. I've had several conversations with friends about this, but it was like, I remember struggling because, my dad had like a do-rag. Do you know a do-rag?
Yeah.
And so one day I was like, I'm gonna wear braids. I'm gonna wear this do-rag, and I come in with like this oversized like mesh shirt and like baggy everything, and I'm like, I'm being Black today. It's like, but it was the weirdest thing. Like I look back on it now, but I was like, I maybe it wasn't weird. Maybe I can look back and say that girl, my younger self, was really trying to figure out like who she is.
Yeah.
And when you're already in that stage of adolescence, you know.
Nobody knows anything what's going on.
It's a struggle out there,
Yeah.
So, but it's quite interesting. I like looking back and just kind of reflecting on those moments, and they all, come to reveal like who we are now.
But they're
as
important
people.
conversations to have. They're incredibly important conversations to have, right? Because even me, it was a couple of years ago, I really had to check my privilege and take a look at my own life and how I've had it pretty easy, just because I was born white, simply, right? And so I'm very cognizant of that privilege, and but I wasn't aware of that growing up.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of us weren't because we didn't have to be.
We didn't have to be. Yeah, you were aware of it. So I'm so glad you're speaking about it. I think it's such an incredibly important topic, and it is a root cause of imposter syndrome and fitting in and things like this, cultural differences, and it's not something that Alex and I can talk in. So I'm so honored that you're open to chit-chat with us about that.
Of course, especially in the business community, because what I'm doing, I haven't seen before. I even as an entrepreneur, like there's very few people in my immediate family or anyone that has gone into business for themselves. There's very few people in my family that have open conversations about some difficult things in life,
Yeah.
And so like even in that, it's like sometimes I'm like, oh, should I be talking about this, or like, am I qualified to have these kind of conversations, like early stages?
Yeah.
Now I'm
it's
moving
100%
through that.
yes.
Yeah.
And that I think is part of breaking that generational, because you're setting up a better communication path for the next generation and the next generation.
Absolutely.
And that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got enough broken people out there.
I know.
Yeah.
We need a movement of healing.
Yeah, we
really do.
And truly do. Yeah. One of the ways to combat imposter syndrome is to actually listen to how awesome the people in your life think you are. If you're looking for the perfect gift for a loved one, where you can tell them all of the things that make them special, visit my Drawbridge Creative Etsy shop and purchase a Things We Love About You custom poster. With several styles to choose from, it's a fabulous gift for any milestone birthday, anniversary, retirement, or just because. So you're acting. You do a lot of acting. I have to tell you, this Alex isn't a big Hallmark movie person. I love the Hallmark movies.
It's hard to believe.
It is. Usually mid-November, I turn on the Hallmark show, and I'm in there. I love it. There's something comforting in it. But I have to tell you, when I turned on the TV, I couldn't wait last year until your Hallmark show came on. And first of all, you were not in it enough. But when I turned, and I have goosebumps right now, because to see you in that Hallmark movie last year was so beautiful. I was so proud of you. I was sitting there with my phone filming the TV that I was watching, because it was so awesome to see you in a Hallmark show.
It was so awesome to be in a Hallmark
So
movie.
were you having imposter syndrome then? Were you like, what am I doing here? Because I would have been.
Yeah. Maybe not for that project.
Okay.
Only because the year before was 2022. Again, a rough year. And my mom loves Hallmark. Like the two of you could just have a Hallmark.
I've wanted to spend time with
marathon.
your parents. I might have to have a marathon
We might have to
with
set
your
that up,
mom
actually.
and dad and a red blanket, me curled up in the middle of them.
Oh,
Let's
they
do
will.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I'll make sure we set that up. But I remember my mom. It was during the summer, and she was like, "Just come down. Like they're still in the valley. Come down, and like we're gonna have like a pajama and watch Hallmark." Because I was really sad. It was a sad year, and so I was like, I mean, I'll watch Hallmarks like closer to Christmas just to get in the spirit, but I don't want to do this in the summer. But she was like, no, she was persistent. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll come down and we'll have a mother-daughter day and like, we'll be nice. And I started watching, I don't even remember the movie now. But I said to Mom, I can see myself in a Hallmark movie. And I didn't think anything of it. And then that fall, I had an audition for, it was a different role, actually, in that movie. It was the mayor. And I was cast in a different role that I didn't audition for, I didn't read for. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe
I
this.
just
Like
manifested
that. You
because I said
manifested
this,
that.
but then I forgot about it, let it go. And so for that experience, I was like, yeah, I told myself I could see myself in it. So here I am, that you're doing the thing.
Love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, but there's other shows like the one I just wrapped on this summer. I had the opportunity of working on in a reoccurring role. I had some major imposter syndrome moments. Yeah, only because, and I've had to have many conversations with myself. Like I'm sitting in the trailer and I'm like doing a little prayer meditation. I'm like, you're here for a reason, like speaking to myself in the mirror. And it wasn't because anyone said anything or did anything. It actually was everyone was quite supportive and, welcoming. Because I worked with a lot of actors from the U.S. and who have been in the business for a long time. And I remember one time we were doing a table read with with my castmates. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm looking around. I'm like, I know what these actors have worked on, and I'm just like, and me, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've only done this, and like, I've only been in the business for 4 years, and I'm working with people who are well known in the industry, but there's a reason for it, and this is why I go back to my faith, is because I'm just like, God placed me in this position for a time such as this, and there's a reason for it, and it's not. I have to stop looking at what other people are doing and focus on my own path, my own journey.
That's so tricky.
And
so hard
it is
to do
tricky.
that.
And you know what? There's many moments where I have to check myself.
For sure.
And I'm like, okay, listen, focus.
I mean, imposter syndrome can really make us question our success and feel undeserving of it. And, as someone who's achieved so much, I'm sure you have those feelings of unworthiness or comparison paralysis, or all of those things have to come up because you are in a wonderful situation, in a room with all of these people that you've maybe aspired to be like, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I'm here,
Right.
I don't belong.
Particularly
Or are they gonna
as we
find out?
progress,
Yeah.
because as we progress to more detailed roles or more involved processes, it's new and it feels uncomfortable and unfamiliar.
Yeah. Exactly. Each level.
Yeah.
Because this was a next level up from the work that I've done before. And honestly, I had to have several moments with myself to say, again, you're here for a reason. But also it's an opportunity to observe and watch what other actors are doing, and ones that have been in the business for a long time. Like, don't miss this moment because of fear and insecurity, and like no one is making you feel this way except for yourself and the saboteurs that are in your head telling you, oh, you don't belong here, or you don't have any formal training in TV and film, or you don't have a theater background, or all these things that I would tell myself, because I'm like, my background is TikTok. Okay, Tyler Perry's Medea
Is your
TikTok.
background.
That's my background. Okay.
But that is becoming a new evolution for people. There's so many people
Yeah.
being discovered that way. So,
Yeah.
but I can understand how that would be intimidating for sure. But
Yeah.
we can't progress to the next level unless we sit in these levels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and everyone around that table was at that level at some point too.
That's it.
So we
That's
have to
it.
kind of think about that sometimes too.
Yeah.
You know, you have to sit here to get here.
And that's you know what? That's a good point to hold on to. And also gratitude. Because I get this opportunity to work on this major production. And I'm like, I don't want to miss this blessing because of fear. I don't want it to like take away from this whole experience. And I was chosen for a reason.
Yes.
Like not only did the casting director select me, the producers, the network had to approve me. And like even the showrunners said how well my audition was for that part. And it was the part was for an older woman. And it went out and I just kept, and I remember my agent saying, you know, like they're considering you, but you know, they have to send it back out. They're looking for someone older. And I prayed, I said to God, I was like, okay, I can't stress about this. Cause I always said to myself, whatever is meant for me, whatever project and role is meant for me will never miss me. It will come to me. And I just prayed. I said, God, if this is for me, may my name be on the contract. And it was like months later, it came back and it was like, they want you. And so it's like, you forget the process of getting there when you're in the moment of fear and like, and feeling that imposter syndrome is like, yeah, but you're here for a reason. You were chosen. You were selected. Don't miss that moment of, you know, gratitude and just lean in and
I think
do your best.
a lot of times, if we have a natural ability for something, that doesn't feel like we've earned it. You know?
Yeah.
And there's no discretion between having 20 years of acting. If you have a natural ability to do something, then we have to lean into that and respect it.
And then sometimes I question, do I have a natural ability?
Well, clearly you do.
Well, you
You're
do.
getting cast.
But even still, like, there's moments where I'm like, am I doing this right? Like,
Yeah.
what, like you are the character. You're not like with TikTok is like, I was trying to be another character, but for acting, it's a whole different thing. It's like you're embodying the character. You're becoming that person.
Yeah.
And in storytelling, like, you know, you can tell bad acting. And I look at some of my auditions from like when I started in 2021, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it sounds like I'm acting as opposed to like just being the character and saying lines and being in dialogue, you know? So I've seen growth, and
Sure.
I also work with an acting coach who has been tremendous, and I've taken lots of classes and
But
doing all the things that I
you
can.
have to practice your skill.
You have
for
to,
no matter what it is.
Yeah,
To
with
grow, well,
anything,
yeah.
really,
Yeah.
with anything,
Yeah.
Even as a speaker, it's like there's skills within that too. That you know, you don't just show up and like some people maybe do have that natural. Again, I just don't.
I mean, I'm speaking on the weekend, and I've been practicing in my mirror all
You
week.
have been. You're going to do great.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
sometimes it's like just having the faith, like knowing that you know what you know,
Yeah.
and you know
I got
your
this,
skill, and you got this,
Yeah.
and just to let it flow.
Yeah.
Because
It's
sometimes
like
when
finding
I'm
that
over
marriage.
rehearsed, sometimes over rehearsing can, because especially in the acting world, it's like I can rehearse lines and whatever and rehearse it with someone, but when you're on set, you don't know. Like when you're playing with other characters, they may not rehearse it. They
have
may
to be
not
able
say the
to-
lines, you know, the way that you've rehearsed it. So it's being flexible and just allowing yourself to.
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt on the fly. If you forget something, it can't throw off the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think you're so
great.
fun to listen to, Martina. I really, you're all of the stuff that you chit chat about mental health is so important. I love that you've provided a space and a voice to all of the issues that people are having and just normalizing that. So thank you for that. The podcast is great. The acting stuff, it's just a joy to watch you there. You can tell you're in your natural habitat. You're having some fun out there.
Oh,
It's
I'm having
nice
a lot
to
of fun.
see. Yeah. And I'm glad. I'm not glad for you breaking, but I think you're right that for whatever reason, everything came to a head, and look at you on the other side.
That's
and,
it.
And you're not done. I mean, you're still working through a lot of it. You're still pushing forward, but life is better on the other side of tough times.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the breakthrough comes through.
Yeah.
It's like when you're at that precipice and you're just like, oh, I don't know. And many people stop there and they're just like, just keep going. If you have to crawl one step at a time, just keep going because breakthrough is on the other side.
That advice is so important.
Yeah.
It really
Thank
is.
you. Thank you.
Thank you
My
so much for
pleasure.
sharing. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Like it really is. Like the pivots and the focuses. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on
Well,
this.
I mean, we love
on
when
the
people are
show.
vulnerable. We love when people put it out there. Like it's and to me those are the best episodes. And anyway, it's been lovely to talk
There's
to you.
freedom in our truth.
There
I
is.
think so. I
Yeah.
think so. Oh, yeah. Speed round.
Speed round. We're going to ask you 5 questions. You might need to dig a bit. I think we just laid the last week's right on top.
All right. We'll
Dig in.
Dig in here. So 5 questions. We try to encourage people to answer in 1 word or less, but sometimes that's not possible, and we never hold people to it. So,
Do you know who you're talking to?
Right?
what is your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
It's hard not to be Christmas, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good one. Yeah, I love Christmas.
What's the most interesting place you've ever been to?
Oh. I'm gonna say Hawaii. I love
Hawaii is so lovely.
The Kona Coast is beautiful. You forget it's an American state.
I know.
But yeah.
I know. Other than the serving sizes.
Yeah.
My husband was like obsessed with the breakfast food, which I can't remember what it's called right now. So we had to go to like every restaurant so he could try it.
Oh, it's
I
amazing.
can't remember, was that something loco? I can't remember.
Greece too, and Barcelona. Oh, I love Spain. Oh my gosh,
I haven't been to Spain
It's on my
yet.
bucket list.
I'm going back to. I have to go back to Spain.
It's on my bucket list too.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter lived there and I didn't through the pandemic and I didn't get to go. But yeah.
If you could have dinner with any fictional character, who would it be?
Oh,
That is a tricky one. We don't ask that one very much.
We don't ask that.
that is a tricky one. Oh man, who would it be?
I don't know who it would be for me.
I don't know either. Maybe Ramona Quimby.
Oh, she was so fun.
Ramona.
Yeah.
Ramona. It was like a children's book.
Yeah. Ramona Bixby? Ramona,
Quimby?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Huh. Oh. I don't. Oh man.
What's
Who
coming?
would I
You're
be?
grinning.
I'm
Something's
like,
coming to you.
Winnie the Pooh.
Right? Right? The man wears no pants. Just a shirt and underwear. Right?
There's something about Winnie the Pooh. I don't know. I'm like, that's kind of weird, but it's not weird. I love how he loves to eat. I love to eat. And every time I get really hungry and excited about food, I go, and I think he
does
kind of does that too.
Winnie the Pooh is the entire thing is to me all about mental health. Like every character has a different
There was a
Thing.
study out
Yeah.
of Dal, I think.
Yeah.
That kind of, yeah.
right? Yours depression. Tigger
Tigger.
definitely has some kind of ADHD crazy thing going on.
It was,
Yeah.
Rabbit, I think they correlated with OCD.
Oh,
There was a whole study from Dalhousie that
That would be
I
interesting
saw.
to read too.
I saw this years ago.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but
That's a
yeah,
good
I'd
one.
say Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the
like
Pooh.
that.
I love it.
What chore do you absolutely despise doing?
I would say putting away laundry.
It's the worst.
Yeah,
could
everything
do
else
it.
I love. Dishes is
make it.
therapeutic for me. Washing dishes, but putting away laundry is just like
Stupid.
I mean, I hate them all, but
It's stupid. It just belongs in a basket. It doesn't need to go away. Just multiple baskets.
as I'm thinking about all the clothes that are still in the dryer that
Yeah.
I have to fold later.
I know.
Yeah.
The folding part is what I really hate.
And that too, yeah.
I don't mind folding. I just don't like putting them away.
What's the first thing you do in the morning?
I wake up and I say, thank you, God, for another day.
Love
That's
that.
nice.
Before my feet hit the ground.
Before your feet
Before
hit
my
the floor.
hand holds my phone. Yeah, that's the first thing. Thank you for air in my lungs. Thank you for waking me up.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, girl.
Thanks for having
Thank you
me.
so
It was so
much.
much fun.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Imposter Sisters. Please remember, we're not doctors or mental health experts. If you're looking for mental health guidance, please see our show notes for local resources. Until next time, keep your head high, and we will see you next Tuesday.